Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne here with you on this Thursday morning. Lot to talk about, man. I mean, it's really funny. Somebody sent me a text this morning right before the show started. Said maybe it was from Barstool. The SEC, college football, the gift that keeps on giving. It really does. You pick your story, it's out there. We've got one of the absolute best Saturday Down South, Connor O'Gara from down in Orlando. Absolutely love having him on here. Already got a lot of people going with their questions and all. We're going to get to as many of them as we can while we got him. Gary Harris joins us in the second segment. WVUA TV 23 in Tuscaloosa and also Tide 100.9 radio. We'll check in. Alabama getting ready for that matchup over in Atlanta Saturday. We may be there, we may not. We're all over. But that's going to be a hot topic as well. Hour number 2, the ADs, Matt Dean, the coach, will join us, and John Hartwell talk about his coaching search and what's going on, rules changes, the business side of college athletics. Never enough time, but we'll get as much in as we can. 6 days a week, 25 times a month, 300 plus shows a year. Repetition is the mother of all skill. And let me say again, we're really proud and just blessed to have great sponsors like the Vitamin Shop, okay? As Nigel calls it, the Vitamin Shop. But Justin Ross has joined our team as a sponsor. They have 2 locations. The first one is open now, 5338 Goodman Road in Olive Branch, Mississippi. Store hours, Monday through Saturday, 9:30 a.m., 8 p.m. Sundays, 10:30 a.m., 7 p.m. And they're building a second location, which will open late February, early March in Oxford, Mississippi, the Vitamin Shop. You'll have links on our website at sidelines.live. Let's get cranked up right now, man. He is jonesing to talk some college football, as all of us are. Connor O'Gara, thank you for taking time out of your morning. How is the young one doing, man? It looks like you've been up a while.
6 months today. 6 months today.
They're fun, aren't they?
They are fun, and she's been great. She's been kind to us, so I'm very grateful for that. Grateful that she's healthy, that she's growing, and you appreciate every day you get to spend with them.
Hey, I remember when my first kid was on the way, people say, oh, well, I've got to have a boy or got to have a girl. You're like, give me 10 fingers, 10 toes, a heartbeat, healthy. I'll take that any day. And most of my friends that hunt and fish the most all have daughters and no sons. It's like, be careful. You got to. And then the sports fans. I mean, mine all love sports. So that's a good thing. But Connor, while we got you, man, where do you want to start with the stories? Because there's a lot of comments coming in, but you do so much great writing, and we want to hear what you've got to say.
Yeah, how about this SEC championship, a game that I think a lot of people came into the season wondering if we would get a part 6 of Saban versus Smart. And sure enough, we are going to get that. And we're going to get that in a place that Nick Saban has just been lights out. I mean, to think about his run of success in Atlanta and whether or not it will come to an end on Saturday, it's absurd. Even if it does come to an end via a blowout by Georgia, which I don't think is going to happen. But think about this. You know, Bama loses in the 2008 SEC championship to Tim Tebow-led Florida, a team that goes on to win a national title. And then since then, Bama has won 16 straight in Atlanta. And Georgia Dome, Mercedes-Benz, whatever you want to call it, they go into Atlanta and they make it their own. And it's interesting because up until last year, the knock against Georgia was they really struggle in Atlanta. Kirby Smart is 5-4 in Mercedes-Benz since it became Mercedes-Benz. And basically coincides when Georgia became Georgia in 2017. So how much does venue matter in a game like this? It feels in a weird way like the last thing that Kirby Smart has to do is beat Nick Saban in Atlanta. Beat him in Indianapolis for a national championship, and he's won 2 in a row. Kirby runs the sport, no question about it. But it's one of those things where if you beat Saban in Atlanta, that is just, to me, such a different kind of feather in your cap, and what a way that would be to close this era of the SEC.
Yeah, and then, you know, we got SEC facts up here. He's never beaten Alabama in that championship game, but he's won 2. He always tells his players. We had Jordan Hill 24/7 Sports on yesterday talking about that hey, you know, we've never beaten them here. I mean, we're going for this 3-peat. So he's always finding that angle to motivate his team, isn't he?
He is. And last year, I remember the takeaway from that LSU game was for Georgia, hey, can we figure out what we're not doing well and be perfect? Because the year before, the 2021 team that I don't know, I would say probably stacked up a little bit better then the
Yeah.
2022 team, different identity, all those things. But just in terms of the talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball, historically dominant. And that 2021 team loses in the SEC championship to Alabama. And it was this reality check moment. And Kirby's challenge to that 2022 squad was let's not have that. We can be less than perfect, but let's do that and win football games. Crazy concept. And they were able to do that. And I remember thinking that day, man, I just don't think anything is going to get in the way of this team winning it all. And I wonder if that'll be the same sort of feeling if they're able to beat Alabama in Atlanta and they're able to do so on that stage, knowing that Alabama is the team that should be playing like this is a free roll. Because the things we're saying about the Tide in mid to late December were that there's no way that this team is going to be good enough to run the table to get to this place where it could have playoff life going into an SEC championship and go 8-0 in SEC play, all those different things. So Alabama, in a weird way, as the underdog, is a 6.5 point underdog, whatever that number is now, should be the team that's playing fast and loose.
Yeah, and you look at this game, and I think Georgia had to hear a lot of stuff too about the 21 game. John Mitchie was injured in the SEC championship game, and then Jamison Williams in the national championship game. And Dr. Andrews was on the show with us talking. He goes, I was on the field in Atlanta. And he goes, I was on the field in Indianapolis, and I was on the sidelines in the Super Bowl when Odell Beckham tore his knee up. He doesn't like this sprint turf, for the record. Dr. Andrews is a great orthopedic surgeon. He's Auburn's team doctor. Studied under Dr. Houston, also covers Alabama now. But that's something that Kirby Smart is the master motivator. Here's an interesting fact here. True road wins in the SEC versus top 10 non-SEC teams are hard to come by. LSU has one. That was at Texas in 2019, and they're the 11th winningest program in college football history. What are your thoughts about the SEC this year, the top to bottom? Early on, the narrative was it's a down year. How are we finishing up, in your opinion?
I think it finished better than people thought. Think about this. There is a pretty good chance, depending on how things shake out conference championship weekend, that there will be 4 SEC teams playing in a New Year's Six Bowl. Mizzou and Ole Miss, in addition to Alabama and Georgia, could all be playing in a New Year's Six Bowl. I was wondering coming into this, if coming into SEC play rather, if this was going to be a little bit reminiscent of 2016, a year in which there was one good team. Alabama was that one good team, and it was a bunch of 4-loss teams outside of that, and it really did not have the depth. And that has not proven to be the case because Alabama has obviously turned things around, and you didn't question kind of where Georgia was at, although Georgia obviously got off to the slow start. But to see Mizzou, to see Ole Miss get to that 10-win mark, historic seasons for those programs, I think the depth is still there. Now, do I think that the Pac-12 had easily the best non-conference run of any conference? Yes, definitely. I think what we overlooked was that it was a little bit more relative to expectations. The rest of the Power 5 conferences were really in the same spot in non-conference play. If you kind of looked at the way that they were against Power 5 opponents, it was really the Pac-12 was first, and then everybody else is kind of in this tie for second, and nobody was particularly good. So I think that's kind of where that narrative took off a bit. But yeah, I mean, to see Kentucky beat a one-loss Louisville team on the road in what was probably their biggest home game in school history, I think, the questions that we had about some of the depth in the SEC after just a really bad start in non-conference play, I think that has kind of turned around. It's not to say that they're clearly the most dominant conference, but I think they've just been better than what those early season expectations were.
Yeah, and the narrative is if Alabama is not good, then the rest of the league isn't. I mean, that's just, you can't say that. I mean, look at this fact: Florida, the winningest team in college football from 90 to 09, which is kind of segue into the next question from David in Memphis. How much longer before Billy Napier starts winning, or is he going to start winning big enough at Florida? Does he have time?
He doesn't have time. He doesn't. And look, I continued to say throughout this entire season, even if they miss a bowl game, he's going to be back because they're not going to pay $31 million to fire him.
Oh, yeah.
And he is going to be back, and he's going to get a year 3. Scott Strickland, the AD who hired him, who committed like 60 to 70 million bucks towards making this work. He knows this is his last chance, Scott Strickland, as an AD, to be able to make a football coach work. And so far it has not worked. This was a failure for Billy Napier this season. And he can talk all he wants about, we're young at this spot here, we had this injury there, all those different things. But the reality is, when you lose games, and you lose games the way that Florida's losing them, that's where this whole rebuilding patience process stuff, it gets thrown out the window. When you're having multiple guys with the same number on the same special teams unit, when you're having a guy spit in the face of an opponent right in front of a ref, when you're having a targeting penalty on not one but 2 guys on a QB sneak on 3rd and 14 that's well short of the line to gain in a critical spot, talent doesn't just come in and fix that. No. There are issues with Florida that go beyond, we're just young at this spot, young at that spot. And that is the most troubling thing for this Florida team, that's seeing all these decommits or seeing guys enter the transfer portal. And this year 3 now is going to enter with Billy Napier on every single hot seat list in America, as he's about to face the most difficult schedule in college football. And so the path to success got so much more narrow with this 5-game losing streak to miss out on bowl eligibility.
Yeah, and that schedule in 24 is brutal. I mean, I think they play Miami, other Florida schools besides Florida State.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a sausage grinder. Another one, and I'm see if I can get this one up in here. Whoops. Okay, here we go. I look at the big picture. Who's your pick for the Heisman? Okay, but before we get to that, you look at a school like Florida, and you look at a school like Texas A&M, and you look at Texas from 1970 to the present. Texas, with over 30 million people that we know of, all that oil money and all they have. 2/3 of the money from the state goes to Texas every year. 1/3 goes to A&M. That's a lot of money. Money alone can't solve it. Florida's got a lot of people, 23 million people. They've got a lot of money, but what culturally is not working at A&M and what's not working at Florida? It looks like they got it going at Texas. It just doesn't make any sense to the average viewer.
Well, you would have said the same thing about Texas at this time last year. And
yeah, I would have.
An entire decade of dysfunction that was pretty similar to what we saw Tennessee experience.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think you would look at those things and say, well, I think it's different problems at different places. And for A&M, I have always felt that it is a very unique place, and you really need to have the right person there who understands it and who isn't just going to go into this job thinking, well, because I have these deep pockets, it'll take care of everything. It just doesn't. And you still have to be a darn good football coach. And Jimbo Fisher's best days were behind him as a head coach. And that's ultimately why it didn't work. Adapt or die. He died. He did not adapt. And there is a hope and a belief that Mike Elko will adapt much better than Jimbo Fisher did. As someone who saw 4 years of that Jimbo Fisher era, there are a lot of people who feel strongly that Mike Elko will be the person to clean up the mess that has been left, use the transfer portal more effectively, have a modern offense that isn't so locked into this certain terminology, this certain system. And I think that there is now a different path to success with the 12-team playoff that could benefit a team like Texas A&M. Texas A&M hasn't had consecutive top 12 finishes in the AP poll in 3 decades. Think about that. That is the new mark that so many teams are going to aspire to reach. And I think A&M is in a spot now where we can be perceived differently, but it still just comes down to having the right head coach. And they just have not had the right head coach. It has felt like it at certain times, but it has been more just a flash in the pan type of run of success for A&M. For whatever reason, that has been the case in this modern era of college football.
Yeah, and we talk about culture. That's a term that's thrown around rather loosely, but a culture that just demands it, accountability. There's just, you look at Alabama, you look at Georgia right now. It's a process. Got to work. Who is your pick for the Heisman Trophy? I mean, Bo Nix, Auburn people pulling for him still. He's got a degree from Auburn, but he escaped the ship because I don't think he could stand being in the same county as Brian Harsin, nor could anybody else. Arguably the worst hire in Auburn history other than Tony Barbee. But then you got Michael Penix Jr., who left Indiana with, his assistant, the offensive coordinator, who became head coach at Washington. And I look at Jaden Daniels' numbers in the league that he plays in, but where do you rate him?
I can't reveal what my
Okay,
ballot's
got
going
you.
to look like just because the
Okay.
NDA. So I
Yes,
can't
yes.
officially say that. But
Yeah.
if I'm guessing today who I think will win the award, my guess is that unless Bo Nix has an unbelievable game on Friday night, and I'm talking like 5-6 touchdowns, dominant win over Washington, the type of
Yeah.
performance that shows us that he has avenged that loss in the regular season and then some.
Mhm.
Barring that, I believe that Jaden Daniels will win the award. And I think he will win the award in part because he hit that wild 50 touchdown benchmark pre Heisman, something that prior to Jaden Daniels doing that, only 11 players at the Power Five level have ever done pre Heisman ceremony.
Wow.
And to do that without a conference championship game is remarkable. Jaden Daniels got every blade of grass he wanted. It's wild to think about the things that he did. And I saw him in that season opener in my neck of the woods here in Orlando, when in the second half, really the fourth quarter more so, he struggled in that game. And if you had told me that's the guy that I'm going to say going into conference championship weekend is the most likely to win the Heisman Trophy, I would have said you're out of your mind. But
Yeah.
all he has done is continue to get better. The game has slowed down. And it's a different level of control than what Bo Nix has, in my opinion. And Bo Nix, I'm not trying to take anything away from him.
Yeah.
The notion that it's all checkdowns, I disagree with that entirely. I actually think that's a better part of his game that he didn't have at Auburn, is that he wasn't taking those free yards the defense would given him. And because maybe he started too early in his career, he developed some of those bad habits, and everything was trying to be a home run play and trying to put the entire team on his back. So I love the Bo Nix. The way that he has developed, it is truly remarkable stuff. But if I'm guessing today, I think that Jaden Daniels will win the award and Bo Nix will be number 2. And probably Michael Penix will get there. I don't think Marvin Harrison Jr. will be number 3 if I had to guess.
Okay. And I respect you not revealing due to the NDA, because in my business, that is every day we have to deal with those outside of doing this show. I promise you. And I really respect that. Walter in Memphis, Connor, one of the best guests on it. You cannot,
Thank you, Walter.
You cannot beat the Irish Catholics. I mean, we're the chosen people. but look, I love what you say. And Bo Nix, would he be having this kind of success if he were still in the SEC? Given that, obviously you'd have to have a new coach. I just don't. It was not going to happen with what Harsin was doing.
No, I don't think he would. But here's the tricky thing, because I remember seeing him in that game last year, the season opener against Georgia at Mercedes-Benz.
Yes.
And I remembered thinking, man, it's just never going to quite be there. And you know what? Maybe he's going to put up big numbers, not facing the Georgias, the Alabamas, the LSUs. Maybe he's going to do great things, but I'll still always have that, I don't know. I think the player that he's become this year would have been able to come into the SEC and have great success. Now, that's somebody with 4 years worth of starts under his belt that I'm saying that about. I don't think it would have necessarily been the case last year, but, to see the things that he's doing, the throws that he's making, the tight windows, the composure, the toughness, everything that you want in a leader, Bo Nix has. And it took a long time for him to be able to get there. And this is not usually what we talk about with guys that start so early in their careers, but we're talking about that way with Jaden Daniels too. I mean, think of how many Arizona State people are watching this guy. I was talking to Matt Barry yesterday, great Sports Center anchor, Arizona State grad, who watched a whole lot of Jaden Daniels early in his career. And he's like, man, we saw what he could do his freshman year when he had the right surroundings. But then, it just didn't develop in the way that you hoped. And it's kind of interesting that those two guys, Pac-12 to SEC, SEC to Pac-12. So it's not just, you can't just sit here and say, well, one guy got lesser competition and that's why he's doing the things that he's doing, when Jaden Daniels came into this conference and then took off in his second year in the system. But yeah, I mean, I think he would still be having a ton of success, maybe just a few more reality checks here and there, but I don't want to take away anything from what he's done, because, man, I just applaud the kid for sticking with it and getting to the right situation to be able to maximize his skill set.
Yeah, I am. I'm always going to be a Bo Nix, Patrick Nix fan, always will be. And I don't cheer against people. I'm going to find some good stuff about you. I love your take on that. Larry in Tampa, with the internet, the interweb, whatever you call it, listeners, viewers everywhere, thank you. Larry in Tampa. Why can't Miami win big anymore? That's a school where they had an NIL booster come out and say, everybody, money falling from the sky. It doesn't work that way. You can't just flick a switch and throw money at a problem. If it is, it's not really a problem. But what about Cristobal in his second year there? Where do you see them going? They've got, the ACC right now is a conference.
It's not great. It's really not. And, I think that question, the further and further you get removed from your dominance, there are people that have the kids that you're trying to recruit, they do not remember Miami being Miami. They just don't.
Yeah.
They don't remember Nebraska being Nebraska. They don't remember Tennessee being Tennessee. And all these programs that have had this late 20th century success, that in early 21st century, obviously, and what Miami was when they're losing to Ohio State in the national championship game that they obviously should have won if not for a phantom pass interference call. But this is still a difficult thing to sustain if you're not willing to put the resources in the right place. And for so long, it took Miami getting called out by Kirk Herbstreit on College Game Day to say, oh, we actually do need to start spending more money. And it was something that we've talked about on this show. And I think the programs in the state of Florida, Florida State, and Miami all struggled with how to spend on their facilities when other programs were spending more and coming into their state and getting their recruits. You can't just rope off I-4 in the way that Miami used to be able to do that and say, we're going to get all these kids from South Florida when there are kids that are being recruited nationally in a way that they weren't in the 1990s and in the 1980s when Miami was doing the things that it was doing. And it's, more national than ever when it comes to recruiting and the spending. So that's a long-winded way of saying, I just don't think that that's a realistic expectation for what they can become anymore. I just don't. So for me, it's more about, hey, can you get to New Year's Six Bowls? Can you be competing for a 12-team playoff spot? That should be the goal that Miami should aspire to have. They will never have a run of dominance like what they had in the U Part 1 or the U Part 2.
Yeah, and here's another. I like this one. Gary in Birmingham, and I appreciate you taking these questions. Connor, you get up. What time do you get up in the morning? About 5:30 and work out? I was up at 4:30 this morning, but I went back to bed, but I get back up at 5:30.
No, it depends. You get called, you've got the baby monitor going, and sometimes if she's going to wake up at 5 o'clock, I'm going to go get her and bring her in. My wife's going to do the feeding and all that stuff. And I'll stay up and then put her back down and then go back to sleep until 6:30 or whatever. 6:30's probably about 6:30 is the wake up usually in a given day. But I'm a later in the day workout type of guy these days. But look, you just do what you can at this point. As for the SEC getting left out of the playoff, I don't think it will happen. There is a 5%. Is that too much, too little? I just don't think that Bama is going to get left out if it beats Georgia. And look, I am the one who, if I will bang the drum 99.9% of the time, if you are comparing teams for a playoff spot and they have the same number of losses and there is a head-to-head advantage, I'm going to default to the head-to-head advantage. But the one exception is beating the two-time defending national champs who have won an SEC record 29 consecutive games and beating them on a neutral site. If Bama does that, that is just different. It is the ultimate trump card. It is the type of thing that the college football playoff is not going to overlook, in my opinion. And as much as that sucks to hear for Texas, it is reality. And it is reality that Bama gets that opportunity. Of course, nobody has a more difficult conference championship matchup than Alabama to have to face Georgia, the team that just looks immortal. But at the same time, like, that's the only scenario in which the SEC gets left out is if Texas gets moved into the field. We've also never seen a number one team going into conference championship weekend fall out of the college football playoff. So I don't think that the path for Georgia with a loss is as clear as it's been the past 2 years, but there are still scenarios in which Georgia could lose this game and make it into the field. But it's just as top heavy of a playoff field as we've ever had to have 8 teams at the Power 5 level with 0 or 1 loss going into conference championship weekend. That is the most that we have ever had in the 10-team playoff era, or in the 4-team playoff era during the 10 years of this system.
Yeah. And think about next year, the excitement. And again, y'all have got coverage all over the country. And what we talk about here in the South, it resonates. It's like the tectonic plates on the San Andreas Fault. I mean, there's a ripple effect. But I can imagine next year the conversations we're going to be having are going to be a lot. It's as great as this is. it's about to get a hell of a lot better because the top 25 teams in November are all going to be thinking they're going to be in the playoffs if they keep winning.
For those of us in the content business, it'll be very exciting in many ways. Sure.
Yeah.
Totally get that.
Yeah.
I think there are going to be good things about it. There are going to be bad things about it. The bad things about it will be a weekend like last, an awesome rivalry weekend, which wasn't really chaotic, but it was still wildly entertaining with the way that the game played out, with the way that the Iron Bowl played out. Those results for the losing team would not have been nearly as devastating. If Alabama doesn't convert on 4th and 31, they're going into the SEC championship still with a path to the playoff. They could maybe even lose in the SEC championship, be a 9-3 team, and still feel like, hey, we might have a good case to be able to make the 12-team playoff. And that to me is going to feel so different. And Ohio State had one of the most devastating losses we've ever seen a team have in the regular season. Like, it might be the single most devastating loss if they get left out of the playoff as a result of losing to Michigan with the year that Michigan has had. And if this is next year, Ohio State's like, yeah, all right, well, we're still in the playoff. We're sitting out conference championship weekend. Maybe we'll even get a Michigan rematch. So that's the negative. And I'm not trying to take away from it because I love that more teams are going to be involved. I love the fact that we'd be talking about Mizzou potentially hosting a college football playoff game if this were next year. I think that's going to do great things to get more fan bases excited and involved and interested in this sport. And for those of us in the content game that are like, oh yeah, the numbers are great late September, early October, but then, you kind of see them thin out a little bit once more teams are out of the division title, conference title conversation. That's going to change. So I'm here for that. I just think we need to approach this knowing that there are going to be some good things with it, and there are going to be some things that frustrate us and wish that it were the previous era of the sport.
Yeah, and because what makes college football so special is, as an Auburn grad, I'm not sure, we haven't heard from the IRS if Auburn can write that loss off as a charitable donation for tax purposes. That one, gut-wrenching. Got a text from Weekend Wayne in Auburn. How can someone be so stupid to make a call like that? I mean, look in the NFL. They rush 4, they drop 7 back at the goal line. That one's going to be, and Kevin Skarbinski, he's on our roundtable with us on Saturdays, said no longer is Bruce Arians the holder of the worst call in Iron Bowl history, calling that pass play in the 97 Iron Bowl that Ed Sissom was hit and fumbled, and Auburn was able to get a field goal to win 18-17. It's now Ron Roberts, the defensive coordinator for Auburn, Hugh Freeze, whoever made that call, they hold the distinction. What are your thoughts?
I push back a tiny bit on that. And
Okay.
we're going to play the results no matter what. No matter what defense Auburn was going to be in, if they had allowed the play that they did, we're going to criticize that defense. So that's just going to happen no matter what.
Sure.
Where I will push back on it slightly is I would say if you rush 5 and Jalen Milroe looks at that and says, I'm taking off, and those DBs have their backs turned and he makes one guy or two guys miss at the 5-yard line, and Jalen Milroe scampers in for a touchdown on 4th and 31, something that, look, I wouldn't put it past him with the way that he has been able to improvise at times.
Correct.
I go back to that play that he made on the botch snap against Middle Tennessee in the season opener. You're like, this dude is special like that. And so if that happens, then we're blasting the entire Auburn defense as well. You still had a spot where your best corner is in single coverage in DJ James, and he made one wrong step. I'm not here to blast the kid or anything like that, but if your best corner makes one correct step, that play doesn't happen, and Milroe made the perfect throw. Isaiah Bond, the body control to be able to come down with that. Sometimes stuff like that happens, and I know that the coverage gets criticized, but I still think that there are other things that go into it, and it probably wasn't as simple, although it gets compared to, Duke, Kentucky. Why do you let Grant Hill inbound the play to Christian Laettner? And it's, that's what it's going to get compared to. And I fully understand it. Auburn fans were going to feel really upset no matter what, as long as it resulted in a touchdown.
Yeah. I had my black armband on the way to this, but that was a tough one. But you have to give credit to Isaiah Bond. As Ray in Huntsville said, I can't get all these on here. I wish people, hey, put them in on YouTube. It's easier because I can't type them all. Questions and comments come in via text. But he made a great point. That was an all-American play by Isaiah Bond. The body control. The ball was probably a yard out of bounds. He kept his feet in. You got to give him credit for that. Okay. That was people are not, they're talking about Milroe's throw. It was really the catch. And that's a great point. Look, I know you got a big day ahead of you. Compare Miami and Florida's issues. You did that. Tell people how they can follow you. And I talked with a very smart person who's on our team yesterday. Made a good point. So much of the media today is just the media and reporting on the media. You come up with original content, and I applaud you and respect the hell out of you for that, and love it whenever you can be on here with us. And I want people to follow you and the great work you do. And we're blessed to have you as a guest as often as we can have you.
Appreciate that, man. Really, that means a lot. It does. We work very hard to try and put out as much good content as possible on SaturdayDownSouth.com, Saturday Down South podcast twice a week. Try and load it as much as possible with good stuff, with insightful interviews, and hopefully takes that you might not have heard or might not have thought of a situation in a certain way. And we preview every single game that is being played in the SEC with conference play and all that stuff. So yeah, a lot of great stuff. We're going to be talking a lot of Heisman stuff as well coming up here that we've been talking about throughout the year with Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix. So I always tell people, if you want to just spend an afternoon, not working, you're at an office job or something like that, and you're like, I'd rather just not do that and be distracted by something else. Just SaturdayDownSouth.com, spend an afternoon becoming a more informed college sports fan, college basketball content as well. Tons of great stuff. Great time of year to just bookmark a college football website like ours and be able to get as much content as humanly possible. There's no shortage of it.
Listen, if we're driving to Atlanta today or tomorrow, that's what I will be listening to. So just telling you that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, man. Have a great weekend and watching that championship game. We'll take a quick break. Be right back with more on Sidelines.
Red River Ford and Toyota, located in Wynne, Arkansas. If you're in the market for a new or used car, truck, or SUV, call, go online, or drop by and see them. Located 45 minutes from Memphis, go off the 4-city exit on I-40 and go north about 15 minutes on Highway 1. Easy to work with and still believe in customer service. If you live out of town, they will deliver your vehicle to you. RedRiverFordToyota.com. Just see what they can do.
Strengthen your seed zone this spring with quality tillage equipment from House Industries. Located in Cherry Valley, Arkansas, House Industries specializes in manufacturing superior equipment that will minimize your downtime and keep you working in the field. To ensure the highest quality control, all design, fabrication, and testing takes place in a 99,000 square foot manufacturing facility located right here in the heart of the Delta. Locate your nearest House equipment dealer online at houseindustriesinc.com.
House Industries, breaking ground.
Sidelines with Rob Browne. Talk sporty to me.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. That was great stuff with Connor O'Gara, Saturday Down South. We'll be joined in just a second by Gary Harris, WBUA TV 23 in Tuscaloosa. And there's a lot of comments and questions coming in here, and we try to get to all of them that we can with Connor. And I look at the problems. Here's a good question. Compare Miami and Florida's issues. Well, I'll tell you what the problems are. Florida State's ascending again after being out in the wilderness, lost for several years. University of South Florida has gotten $300 million from the state for their big new stadium. University of Central Florida, the Bounce House, they're now in the Big 12. Florida Atlantic, Florida International University. Those are your problems. And they're just having to deal with them. You can look at the state legislature the way it used to be in the state of Alabama. Go back in the late 90s, 80 or 90% of your state budget came from the state legislature. Now, if you look at what Auburn and Alabama are getting from the state legislature, it may be it's probably less than 10%. They're state located, Auburn and Alabama, but almost privately funded 90% or more. That's why these endowments are such a big deal. No one in the South really had endowments at their universities of any substantial size, with the exception of Vanderbilt. And when I started selling bonds back in 1991, I sold as many Vanderbilt Medical Center bonds as I could get my hands on, because back then they had a $3.2 billion endowment. Now it's over 11 and a half. A&M is 19 billion and Texas is 42 billion. But I'll tell you what, Alabama, Gary, you know this, Auburn and Alabama's endowments are both $1 billion to $1.5 billion. There's 5.1 million people in the Yellowhammer State. But if you count national championships from 1970 to the present, if you add up, hell, Auburn's won more than the whole state of Texas has, and Alabama's won more than the whole world has. I mean, but money is not the issue, is it, Gary? You got to have a winning culture, and you got to have the 8 Mile War, stuff like that to go along with it. They got great high school football out there, but it's pretty damn good in Alabama too, isn't it?
It is. I do think you got to have some money, as you alluded to with the endowments. I mean, it's this is the world we live in now. And I was reading this morning about the going rate for quarterbacks in the transfer portal. Woo, man, alive! It's crazy. But yeah, I think that you got to have more than that. We've seen. I mean, if money was the answer, then Texas A&M would be winning championships and not just talking about it. And, Mike Elko at his press conference made it clear that he thought if A&M is the best version of themselves, they can win the national championship. Well, he's got to get them to the point where they can be the best version of themselves, because they've been chasing that national championship since I've been alive. So it isn't just about money, obviously. I do think that you said something, and I don't even know if it's about culture as much as it is just the tradition of winning. And I think the one thing that Alabama has is that they've won over time tested, going all the way back to Wallace Wade and the Rose Bowl, over 100 years of, winning football. And so what you do over time when you win that, and you have a Wallace Wade and a Frank Thomas and a Coach Bryant and a Gene Stallings and a Nick Saban, is that you develop the mindset that, we're going to win consistently. And it's important to a lot of people. And not that it's not important at other schools, but when you have an Alabama in football or a Kentucky in basketball, you're just not going to be bad for a long period of time. You'll get it right because it's just important to too many people. And it is a driving force behind the identity of the school. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's a reality. Kentucky basketball is the identity for that university. Alabama football is the identity for that university. You've got other universities like that. And so when that is your identity, when it goes south, you may flounder for a little bit, but eventually you're going to get it right. It's just like with Coach Moore. You went through, DeBose and, Franchione came and he couldn't cut it, so he left. And then Coach Shula was, let's just be honest, he's probably in over his head a little bit with a lack of experience as a head coach. And, Mike Price, of course, before Shula didn't even get to the season, and then Shula's out and Rich Rodriguez gets offered the job. But eventually, when Mal Moore hired Nick Saban, that changed things for Alabama. It changed things for college football. Now, let's just be honest about it. I mean, when he got that $4.5 million, we were like, wow, now $4.5 million is a non-group of 5 salary. So for Alabama, it's just football is important. I don't know any other way to put it. And it's that type of importance in not just in your priorities of wanting to win, but having won so often. In a school like A&M that has the resources and has the desire, but they just, again, I don't know if you want to call it winning culture, but they just don't have the proof in the pudding, so to speak. They just haven't won the way they've wanted to win and the way they talk about winning. So the difference is Alabama does it, Texas A&M talks about it. And until A&M can break through and, win a championship, that's just the way they're going to be viewed.
Yeah, it is. And I think I like this Andrew in Birmingham tradition never graduates. And I think that was Doug Dickey or Haywood Harris, the former SID at Tennessee, that said that.
But true. It's true.
It really is. And it's like duck hunting. There are places that kill ducks every year. And I spend a lot of time. I probably duck hunted over 1,500 times. Wow. And then there are places a mile down the road.
I'm 1,500 behind you, Rob.
Hey, I'd love to take you. You'd have fun. It's addictive. But there's a lot of football talk involved, and it's fun. But here's the thing. You can have a place a mile down the road, and they don't kill a duck. Ducks imprint on certain places. players imprint on programs where there is a culture of winning and doing whatever it takes to win. And if you've got, though, a lot of people with a lot of money that are not real smart, maybe they've just inherited it, born on home plate, thought they hit a grand slam, that's a problem. When you look at the people that back Alabama, now let's just say some of the families, like the Drummond family, the Cole family, half of them are Auburn and half of them are Alabama probably, but they are serious about winning. And you see it firsthand. That's why someone like you, it's so critical to have you on this show, because you're such a great connection to the past, the present, but you can look ahead. And that's the difference in this Alabama team, which I think is going to go down as Nick Saban's favorite team ever that he's coached after what they started at the beginning of the year.
Well, it's an interesting team. I mean, because you knew they had some talent going into the year, but, they lost those 2 games last year on the final play of the game, didn't even make it to Atlanta. And, so you go into the year, this will be the 3rd year without a national championship. That hasn't happened since Nick Saban's been the head coach at Alabama.
Right.
And then you lose to Texas at home, and then you play that game at South Florida. And quite frankly, they're 2-1. And I think a lot of people felt like, this team was going to lose, another game or 2 or 3 or 4. And to be sitting here now, 11-1, 8-0 in the SEC. It's been impressive. And, obviously got a big one coming up Saturday, but I think it's just another notch in Nick Saban's belt, if you will, in that, as soon as he was doubted, he turned the naysayers on their ear and has this team in position to do something special. Now, if they lose on Saturday, I guarantee you there'll be a lot of people, because already David Pollock and others are already setting up that narrative that if Alabama loses, well, see, they're not as good as Georgia. Georgia's, Kirby's better than Saban and all of that. But regardless of whether they win that game or not, I think it's been an incredible year. And I think if they win that game, regardless of whether they get in the playoff, it won't change the fact that they'll be SEC champions and 9-0 in the SEC and 12-1 overall. So it's been a good job by Saban. I do think he likes this team, because in this era of, it's all about me and, I'm going to get in the portal and you're not playing me. Yeah. He's held this team together, and they seem, at least from my perspective, to all be, bought in to what they want to do. And the guys that are going to go in the portal, I'm sure that, right now they're still trying to stay focused on being a part of this team. And I think that's what separated Alabama the last few years from some other schools, is that even last year when they lost 2 games, it would have been easy to say, for Bryce Young to say, I'm not going to play, or Will Anderson to say, I'm not going to play, or Jahmyr Gibbs to say, I'm not going to play, but they all played. And they went to the Sugar Bowl and they blew out Kansas State. So that's what we're talking about with tradition and culture and holding it together. So, I would not disagree with you. I don't know for sure, because Saban never says this is my favorite team or that's my favorite team, but he enjoys coaching this team. You can tell. Yeah.
Well, and this is what's funny. And you look at the guys last year when Will Anderson and Bryce Young, who were the number 1 and number 3 picks in the draft, when they announced they were coming back for the bowl, I said, that right there tells you about culture, that they did not want to abandon their teammates, brothers, whatever you want to call them. I mean, but they love one another. And they're always going to remember when they come back for the 10 and 20 and 30-year reunions. And I think about some of the conversations, last year, I'll never forget when you said, when Alabama loses under Nick Saban now, it's epic. People are storming the field.
We almost saw one Saturday, didn't we, Rob?
What happened Saturday? My phone didn't work, and I couldn't reach you.
We almost saw one of those epic losses on Saturday. Yeah.
Oh,
but to speak to your point about culture, I think culture is an understanding that you're a part of something bigger than yourself. In other words, it is about, not just about you. You're a part of something, and you want to remain a part of that. And that's culture. Culture is, putting your teammates, your coaches, your team above yourself. And when you do that, you don't make as many selfish decisions as you might if you're a part of a program that doesn't have that type of culture, doesn't have that type of environment. I don't want to say, I will say it. I think there's pressure on players at Alabama to remain engaged with the team, even if they have already decided, you know what, I don't want to come back next year. I'm not going to play. I'm going to go in the portal. But I think there's pressure there from their teammates, and the culture dictates that, well, that may be how you feel, but you put that on the back burner. You don't cause a problem for this team. You don't become a distraction. You know what I mean, Rob? You handle it differently than maybe you would at another school where you just say, season's over. It's terrible around here. I'm in the portal. I don't necessarily know that you do it that way at Alabama. And I think that has a lot to do with, quote unquote, the culture.
Yeah, it does. And, guys are going to go in the portal. Everybody's got them. KJ Jefferson's leaving Arkansas. Bobby Petrino's come back there.
Mercy.
Take that for what it's worth. I know. Again, you're an Auburn fan. Hugh Freeze, we know about his past issues and stuff. But, to me, I don't know.
It's where
celebrated their
Rob.
65th wedding anniversary.
I'm not one to throw stones. Lord knows I don't have any
either.
right to do it. But I will say this: winning, the desire to win in this league and the pressure dictates things like, who would have ever dreamed in 2011, 12, whenever it was, that Bobby Petrino would have ever been back at Arkansas in any capacity. I would have told you the way that he embarrassed that university and he's back as the offensive coordinator. Let's be honest, one bad Sam Pittman season away possibly from being a head coach again. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and let's not be naive.
Yeah.
If next year this thing goes south for Arkansas and they're 8 games in or 6 games in and they're 1-5 or 2-6, it's not beyond the realm of possibility to think they just say, Sam, thank you for your service. Bobby, you take over. And same thing with Hugh Freeze. When Hugh Freeze left Ole Miss, I never would have dreamed he'd be a head coach in the SEC again. But here we are. And, that's because people want to win. And, and again, I'm not passing judgment on any school for anything, because that's what you're trying to do. You're trying to win games, and you see an opportunity. I guess Arkansas sees, feels like Bobby Petrino can help them. Enough time has passed. Am I surprised? Yeah, I'm still surprised. I'm surprised. First of all, I'm surprised that Sam Pittman's coming back. And, I'm like everybody else. I don't know him personally, but, he seems like a super guy, an easy guy for the media to deal with. Yeah. Players like him, but they were terrible.
Yeah.
Rob. I mean, let's be honest. They're that went away from the swamp from being over in the league. And, and that speaks to Billy Napier's issues. But I was shocked they brought Sam Pittman back. But then you bring him back, and I do wonder. I know you have Dudley Dawson and others on. I don't know if you already asked him this. I do wonder if that was Sam. If that was Sam Pittman's decision to say, "Hey, I want to bring in Bob Petrino," or if that was somebody, whether it's Juracek or somebody at the school, saying, "Hey, you're going to bring in Bobby Petrino to be the offensive coordinator." Do you know?
My guess is, we live in Memphis, but we're also in Parkin, in Arkansas, over here at the hunting club, and my guess is that Sam Pittman was told he was going to be brought back. And I think it's a deal where whatever I got to do, I think I'm not sure if it was his decision. I think it was some people above him's decision. That's just my guess, because I think personally, my talk with people in Arkansas was that some of their power brokers were like, we're going to write Sam a nice check at the end of the year. This was early in the season. Thanks for righting the ship. You've done as much as you can. Here's, 10, 12 million bucks. Enjoy life. We're getting somebody else. I think the Petrino thing is what's going to happen is if they don't win big next year, maybe both of them though aren't back. That's how crazy this stuff is. They've got their power brokers up there. But hey, here's a good question. Robin Tupelo. Will Milroe be able to run on Georgia? Hell, he runs on everybody. He could run against the Iron Curtain.
Yeah, I think the question there is, well, how much is he willing to run? I think that I think he's a problem for Georgia. I think he's a problem for everybody. I mean, watch Haynes King at Georgia Tech have some success against him. I think in the game Saturday, Alabama's going to score points. I think the issue is going to be, Alabama's defense against Georgia's offense, because Georgia's offensive line is so good. They're so balanced. Bowers is going to be back. If you give Beck time, he can pick you apart. So I think it's going to come down to Alabama's defense, particularly defensive front. Can they affect Carson Beck. I think Milroe's going to have success. I mean, as you just alluded to, I thought in the Iron Bowl and in other games, he turned down opportunities for big yardage. Now, I admire the fact that he keeps his eyes downfield and he's throwing the ball great. But there are times you just want to say, go, man, go. Because you're right. He's not just a good runner. He's a dynamic runner. I mean, he is a runner that can outrun you, outmaneuver you. And then who was the DB that came up for Auburn and popped him? I mean, it was a heck of a tackle. He's about to get the first down, and the kid popped him, but the kid didn't get up.
Yeah.
I mean, he is a load. And I think to answer the question from Rob and Tupelo, I think that Milroe can run the ball. I definitely do. And I think it needs to be a big part of Alabama's offense because I think that's an area that Kirby's defense is susceptible to giving up some yards. So I think if Alabama's going to win the game, he's going to need to run some. And I think that he could be an issue with his legs.
Yeah. Larry in Atlanta, MVP for Alabama's Kevin Steele. We talked about Kevin Steele in the spring and the summer. I'm a big fan of his because I've watched him a long time.
Too. Love him. I don't think he was the MVP in the first half in the Iron Bowl. Now, the way they were getting shredded with a little misdirection and movement and run game, but they tightened it up in the second half. They did. Yeah. He's done a good job.
And I think what he does. I mean, he's from Gordo, part of the 8 Mile War. But what I think is so amazing to me is when you bring back someone that has been there before and knows what the standard is. That always helps. I mean, the players feed off of that. And all these people try to give you this. I love my friend Doug Dean, part of our sidelines team, the term weak sauce, that you can't be tough on the kids. Yeah, you can. They are starving for discipline. They want it. And you know what? If you got it on your team and you're tougher than everybody else and you got the talent that Alabama has, that's how you win championships. It's not complicated, but a lot of people think it is, and they fail miserably.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what we're talking about with the culture and the buy-in. You come to a program where that's already in place, and even if you're an individualist, even if you're a guy that's been in the portal 3 times, when you come to a school like Alabama, I think the players get with you and say, "Hey, listen, this is the way we do it here." Saban's talked about this. Kirby's talked about it. Other successful programs and coaches talk about not having to always police the players because the players police themselves. And I think that's really where your quality programs differentiate themselves from other programs. The portal is a perfect example. You got talented players in the portal, but a lot of times you've got some malcontents in the portal. You got guys that have not been able to fit in. And, I think it's a red flag when you're looking at a guy who's going to his 4th or 5th school. So I think the fit for him has to be right because many of these guys, let's be honest, they go into the portal because they're not happy with their current situation and they're looking at their individual potential for success. They're not necessarily even looking about where can I win. It's where can I put up the numbers that I want to put up. And when you get one of those guys, even with their talent, they can hurt your football team. And we've seen examples of that. But I think if you go to the right program, they get your mind right. And you're talking about the discipline aspect. I agree with you. I think that I think the good players want to be coached hard. They want to be disciplined, and the ones that don't, you probably don't need them on your team anyway. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you start dating someone that's been married 6 times, I mean, you watch out. I mean, it's the same thing. The problems that you have at school A typically follow you to school B and school C.
They do.
They just do.
They do. And you have to be careful. I think the people that dip into the portal and depend too much on it can get bitten by that. I still think the top programs want to develop their own guys. Now, it is frustrating, even at a school like Alabama or Georgia or Michigan or wherever it may be, that you might invest in a guy, recruit him, sign him, put all the things in place that you have, and he develops under you for 2 or 3 years and then gets frustrated because he's not playing enough. And then he goes somewhere else and he becomes a star. And you think, man, we're the team that developed that guy. That's just something you have to live with sometimes, but it's where we're at. Hey, I'm running out of time, Rob.
Yeah. Hey, tell them how they can follow you, keep up with all your great work. We got a bunch of questions we can't get to. Milroe Heisman candidate next year. He's coming back, isn't he?
Well, I think that he will. Now, listen, let's just say he goes and lights it up in the SEC championship game, and they get in the playoff. And I mean, who knows? I don't think it's a guarantee, but my guess he is. I'll be in Atlanta for the game, by the way. Yeah, you can find me at on Twitter at Gary Harris _WVUA. I have a Gary Harris WVUA 23 Facebook page, website tide109.com and WVUA23.com. Thanks, Rob.
You bet. Love having you on here. Let's take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shop's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
All right, Rob Browne back here with you. Love those new commercials. The Nigel, which means champion in Latin, put all those together. Man, we are blessed to have great sponsors, great listeners and viewers everywhere. And look, we send in your comments and questions. We love when we got these guests on here or just throughout the show. Love the interaction. This is where the fan has the voice. Free speech, the First Amendment is alive and well here on Sidelines. We do it 6 days a week, man. Never feels like work. It is so much fun to get to interact with the guests, listeners, the viewers everywhere. We're based in Memphis, but broadcast everywhere because of the web. We're all over the place, but check us out, www.sidelines.live, and follow us on social media, all the different outlets, and support our sponsors like Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas. And let me remind you that there are no vehicle payments until 2024 on the vehicles that you buy. They've got hundreds of new Ford and Toyota cars, trucks, and SUVs on the lot. Over 700 pre-owned vehicles on the lot as well. Justin Wynn, the general manager, Rusty Howard, Greg Smith on the sales floor will direct you to the salespeople. They're great to work with. You can get online and do a lot of the work before you even get there. So bottom line, if you dot your I's, cross your T's, when you get to the dealership or you get on the phone with them, it might take less than 20 minutes to get your new vehicle. And remember, they deliver anywhere. You'll see the trucks on the road everywhere you go. Like I say, when we're on the road to Atlanta later today, we will probably pass a truck that's pulling some vehicles, and some of those are probably from Red River Ford Toyota, Wynne, Arkansas, only 45 minutes from Memphis on I-40. Go at the Forest City exit, go north about 15 minutes. You'll find them on Falls Boulevard. Red River Ford Toyota, redriverfordtoyota.com. Also, before Matt Dean, the coach, joins us over in Memphis, and John Hartwell, the AD at ULM, want to remind you, Christmas, great time of year. I love it. We just wrapped up Thanksgiving. A lot of great holidays, Christmas coming up. Man, get out to Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. They've got over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. Great looking boots. Great looking women's clothes. They've got Dolce Vita boots. Audrey's got a lot of those. man, they're good looking boots. Get your wife or your girlfriend some of those for her birthday or Christmas. They look great. They've also got the largest collection of duck heads you'll find anywhere. Pants, button downs, polos, vests, jackets. They've got blazers now from Duck Head. They've even got the camouflage pants and the upland hunting pants. Duck Head, a brand you can have since 1865, I believe. Also, they're the second largest Filson dealer in the Southeast. That's right. They've got their largest Filson order ever coming in daily, okay? Hunting gear, shirts, pants, Filson since 1897. Might as well buy the best. They've got it. Old South T-shirts, button-downs, great-looking clothes, and they've got the Devil Dog jeans made by a World War I era Marine. That's right. Casey Goodjohn and my brother-in-law Kurt Ham, Marines, 20-plus years. Get you some Devil Dog jeans. If you're a 34, you wear a 32. Think about that. You go down a couple of sizes when you put them on. That's how they work. Hey, they've got Pendleton, great-looking shirts, jackets, Schaefer Outdoors. They're the wardrobe consultants for the TV show Yellowstone. You've probably heard of it. You can get Rip's jacket out there. You can get John Dutton's ranch jacket out there at Hewlett and Dunn. And the owner, Charles Hall, and his wife, Laura, I love them. They're great people. They are patriots, man. That is on the historic square, Collierville, Tennessee, 111 North Center Street. It looks beautiful out there on the square. All the Christmas decorations are up, the lights. They've got the manger scene. They got it all out there. Easy to get to, hewlettanddunn.com. And also STS Ranch Wear and the Rock Mount shirts. Those ones, they're untucked. You don't have to have a belly to wear them. They're just great looking. Ronald Reagan wore Rock Mount shirts. Elvis wore them. Robert Plant wears them. Roger Daltrey wears them. Let me know who else wore them. Well, who still wears them? Bob Dylan at 80 now, still on tour. He wears Rock Mount shirts. Get them all, hewlettanddunn.com. All right, we're going to go take a trip up to the Quad Cities, and anyone that can type in right now on the show and tell me the 4 cities that make up the Quad Cities, and I'm talking about the ones up there in the Midwest, not the Quad Cities of Muscle Shoals, Tuscumbia, Sheffield, and Florence, Alabama, but the original Quad Cities. And Matt, you don't count because you're from one of them. But Matt, he's got the poker face on right now. He's ready to go talk some college football. And I think there's a game tomorrow night involving the Oregon Ducks. So let's talk about that, Matt, because there's a Heisman on the line for Bo Nix. We just got through talking about it. Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, Michael Penix Jr. Here's the ball. I'm handing it off to you. Start running.
Rob, great to be here. You know, I'll be there tomorrow night. My wife and I are leaving today to go to Vegas, so we're excited to be at that game. You know, funny little story. Had to get on the app yesterday and download Allegiant Stadium and the Raiders app to download our tickets through Ticketmaster. Dude, I just miss paper tickets. I ain't gonna lie to you. I miss them, but we are good to go. We are ready. What can you say about Bo? Bo's had a phenomenal year statistically. If you take away, think about this, Rob. You take away that first performance against Georgia 2 years ago when Georgia was as dominant a football team as we have seen, swept through everything, right? Even though Ohio State's kicker helped them win a national championship that year. I want to remind you that. Ohio State had them beat, Rob. But other than that, I mean, I think Bo is like, 21-3 as a starter. And the 3 losses, I think, are all field goal or less, basically, maybe 4 points. Yeah. He's had a tremendous 2-year cycle. And he's a humble guy. He's a great leader in that locker room. Never underestimate what he does for that team as a leader. His numbers are, he has over 40 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions. I heard your earlier segment with Connor, who's really, really wise. And, you know, I get it. Right now, you know, a lot of people may look at Jaden as the favorite. Jaden may win the thing regardless of what Bo does tomorrow night. And I get that. Bo's playing for – this is really the Elite 8 game for Bo Nix. He wants to win to get to the semis. He wants to win the semis to get to the championship. He wants to win a championship. That's the bottom line. He's upped his draft stock. The coaching staff loves him. My son adores him. The whole staff adores him, and he's been so instrumental. And Dan Lanning is committed to the Ducks. He's been there 2 years, and look what he's done. And a lot of people have tried to get him, Rob, as you know. I think your alma mater last year, even though they ended up with a very good football coach, would have loved to have someone like Dan Lanning.
Oh, who wouldn't? I mean, the guy is he's also got that pedigree. He spent a little bit of time at Alabama, and everybody always looks at that. And I mean, that's, in the military, if you're in the Army and you ever aspire to be a high-ranking officer, you got to get the black and gold tab. You got to graduate and survive Ranger School. 62 straight days of basically 3 hours of sleep a day, 1 meal a day, and the 4 phases. The first 15 days at Fort Benning, which is brutal, 188,000 acre resort there, Fort Benning, Georgia. Yeah. Then you got to go to North Georgia in the mountains in Dahlonega, learn about rappelling and mountain warfare. Then you go to White Sands Missile Base out in New Mexico for the desert phase. And then you go to the swamp phase, Eglin Air Force Base down in Florida, and you get to wrestle with bears, 6-foot eastern diamondback rattlesnakes as big around as an inflated fire hose, with heads as big as pumpkins and fangs that are 6 inches long, panthers. Oh, don't forget alligators too, and fire ants. But we have a friend of ours whose son graduation date is coming up December 8th, and I know he is going to make it. And his mom, every now and then they get a call. You get 90 seconds to say hello in between phases, but you got to be tough. So, but if you spent time with Nick Saban, it's good on your resume. Dan Lanning, Oregon, they've got money out there.
Yeah.
They've got a lot of it. I want you just kind of explain to the fans here. And I watched Bill Walton. It was sad. I love Bill Walton, man. I mean, I still have traumatic memories of 1973 against Memphis State at the time, 21 of 22, the big redhead. But I met him before when he spoke in Memphis about 6-7 years ago at a leadership series in the morning at a breakfast meeting. Couldn't have been any nicer. And his parents were both like librarians there in Los Angeles. But he said, a conference of champions, this is the last regular season. It was sad. I'm sending him, he goes, 108 years, 556 national championships. And, I am so sick and damn tired of all the cynicism from so many people that we know, everybody's so cynical. They know, and it's negative. I'm going to tell you what, eventually that becomes who you are. Okay. But I watched the Cal at UCLA game, and Cal beat them like 33-7. And I hate that. I hate that conference, but it's a new chapter. 100 years ago, 1923, the Southern Conference had 23 schools in it.
Yeah.
And look what we did. 10 years later, the SEC. 20 years later, the ACC. You still got the Southern Conference, and things change, things happen. But who's to say in 4 or 5 years after the chaotic travel schedule that the Pac-12 schools that left don't say, screw this, we're going back to the Pac-12. If y'all want to keep football as a national sport, go for it. But dragging the volleyball team and the rowing team across the country during the middle of the week for matches, God forbid you get caught in a snowstorm on the eastern seaboard, you're there an extra 3 or 4 days, you better bring your books and your laptop.
It's really unfair, Rob. And we talked about this earlier in the football season when we were discussing the leadership of the conference, right? How do you have, you got Oregon and Washington. The winner of that game, barring some other crazy thing, should be in the college football playoff. If Washington wins, they're going to be undefeated. They will be in the college football playoff, right? Yep. But it's unfathomable. And you said it, I think we talked about Chip Kelly had said at that time, hey, if you want to take football and take some of our pieces away, great. But these other sports, let's keep the Pac-12 alive, do our things. As Bill Walton says, and I love watching his basketball broadcast because it provides a nice dose of humor. But let's keep the Conference of Champions alive. And And I really feel for, you look at the whole drama of Oregon State, Jonathan Smith going to Michigan State. I really commend Trent Bray. I've never met him, but he's stepping up to take that head job. I think they're going to the Mountain West, and Mr. Hartwell, who just joined us, would probably know more about that path. But I don't think anything's final. But just the plight of Washington State and Oregon State right now. Everyone else has got a home, either Big 10 or Big 12. But those two institutions have been doing things in a lot of programs at a high level for a long period of time, and they're kind of left out.
Well, it's frustrating. And I know John Hartwell remembers, like we all do, growing up watching, Bill Walton play. He's an interesting guy. And watching a basketball game with him late at night when he'll go, Matt Dean, the point guard for UCLA, grew up on the mean streets of Ocelot, Iowa. That's the home of Roy Munson, legendary bowler in the movie Kingpin. The only man I've ever seen with a rubber hand who could get a strike. But he also plays concert piano as a student of Mozart and Beethoven. And is a hell of a concert pianist. He's going, oh, look at that 3-pointer from him. Oh, my. I mean, in the tie-dye shirts, following the dad around, I don't know what he does recreationally, but I mean, I hope there's still a place for Bill Walton. There always will be. Everybody in Memphis still has nightmares about him being 21 of 22 against Memphis in 1973 because my dad was in St. Louis for a business meeting, and the guys he was with said, hey, we got courtside seats to the championship game. And, of course, my dad's an Auburn grad, but you live in Memphis. You pull for the Memphis Tigers. You pull for Rhodes and all these schools. He went to the game and said, boy, that big old redhead, I hadn't seen anything like him since Ronald McDonald. I mean, just unbelievable. But, John Hartwell, when you join Sidelines, and I'm deep into the coffee here, not Irish coffee, but just coffee, join this show. It's like living in the median on Interstate 95. You got to pull out of your driveway doing about 105. But how you doing there? Welcome to the show. And nothing going on in the sports world right now to talk about, but take a shot if you got anything to talk about, because it's a hell of a day.
Yeah. I just coming up for a little air, a little different background here. I've been holed up in my home office for the last couple of days and getting ready to go on the road. You forget how many best friends you've got until you have a coaching search. And, it's
that's right.
There's 132 FBS head coaching jobs. And when you got one, folks are coming out of the woodwork, but all good stuff.
Yep.
A lot of folks interested. And we won't get into the detail of it, but I'd be remiss if I didn't, say on your show how much I appreciate Terry Bowden and what he's done for ULM the last 3 years. But nothing but class. The guy's nothing but class. Anytime you have to make a change, it's tough. It's a whole lot easier to make a change with somebody that's not a good person than it is when somebody's a good person. But as I've told so many people the last few days, at the end of the day, no matter how good of a person somebody is or their staff is, it's a business. We're all in a business, and you've got both ends of the spectrum. Jimbo Fisher's buyout was $77 million. Terry's was about $200,000. So that's both ends of the spectrum. But a lot of folks excited and interested in our job, and just like in the recruiting game, I was talking to my wife about this last night. I said a lot of this is like being a coach, and you're recruiting prospective student athletes 1, 2, and 3, or 1 through 5, and you change your travel plans, you change everything, because it is a constantly evolving cycle. And with the student athlete, if somebody commits to this institution or that institution, or something changes, you move in a different direction, and no different than my search has been the last couple of days. Like I said, I'm getting ready to go out and visit some folks face to face here in the next three days or so, and trying to bring this home. A lot of people trying to be right down to the wire and say, well, gosh, you got to have somebody by Sunday because the portal opens Sunday. We're trying to do it as quickly as we can. But as I told our student athletes on Sunday, I'm not going to sacrifice making sure that we get the right person to lead ULM football to success to save a day or two, because there's going to be guys in the portal on Sunday. There's going to be guys in the portal on Tuesday. And, oh, by the way, if folks thought that the cycle of coaching changes was over, wait till tomorrow, because there's several folks out there or several institutions who have head coaches who have a clause in their contract that says that the buyout goes down on December 1st. So I think you're going to see another wave tomorrow, which again will send some ripples through the profession and make some more guys available in the pool, and maybe take some guys out. So ever evolving, but appreciate the opportunity to join y'all for a few minutes this morning.
No, look, I mean, it's like window dressing at the end of each quarter. Money managers, you watch the stock market, which I do, and I'm in it. You see the same thing happening. I like Jethro Tull. Yeah, thank God, what in the jungle in Natchez, Mississippi, one of the great Catholic river towns in America. John and Matt should be running the NCAA. I would love to see y'all run the NCAA because you got more common sense and business acumen. And y'all are not political guys. Y'all are straight shooters. You both know how to get her done. And I saw Matt, kind of agreeing with John. You never know how many best friends you have until you have a coaching search. And that's, yeah, I will say this about Terry Bowden. He's on the stadium at Auburn. You've seen that big mural, the ones they have on outside the stadium. What he and that staff did with Jimbo Fisher and Rodney Allison and all back in 93 to 98, there was at that time, Auburn got put on probation August 15th of 93 before his first season. Auburn could have slipped into an abyss of absolute hell. And Alabama was coming off of a national championship, and the negativity and the rumors, the Eric Ramsey nightmare and Donald Watkins, what a horrible person. I don't know if he's still living or not, but you think about that. And Terry Bowden, they stood their ground, and look, people have their opinions about people that they're like elbows. Everybody's got a couple of them. Once they got a couple of arms. I will never, ever forget what those guys did in that 6-year period. After 5 years, he was the 7th winningest coach in college football. And then the 98 season was just disaster. Didn't have a quarterback that had played any behind Damian Craig. But you think about coaches as they stop along the way. These are part of your family, people that marry in. I mean, I'm remarried, but I've got 3 children from my first wife. My mother, treats, that's family. That's just the way it is. And John, you and Matt both, that's not easy to have to make a change. And I respect the way you did it. And y'all know how to, it's not easy. I mean, when you are a leader, sometimes you have to do it, but you do it right. And people will always remember that for the rest of their lives. And so will the fans.
Yeah. And I think it's really important too, for the student athletes to understand that. That's one of the things I said. And, in my Sunday afternoon team meeting, I said, hey, when you see these guys in the hall and they're transitioning out, give them a hug, tell them thank you, whether you agreed with everything they told you or not, because that's what a lot of people don't understand. When you make a change in the head coach, and especially, obviously more so at A&M, and again, I hate to use the A&M ULM comparison, but at A&M, as big as that staff is, it probably displaced 60 or 70 folks along with their families. At our place, you got your 10 on the field guys, you got strength and conditioning guys, you've got analysts. So it was probably 30 at our place, but that's what you don't understand, or a lot of people don't understand when you make these decisions, and you can't make them as a knee-jerk reaction. They've got to be well thought out, because you may have a young analyst or a first-time position coach or anything, mid-20s, late 20s, and not making $500,000 a year, making $40,000 a year, and has a wife and a young child at home who's got to go pick up and go find the next gig. And those things happen. And, if you're in this business long enough, whether you're an athletic director, you're a coach, any of those things, you're going to experience that in your career. I heard somebody say the other day, there's two kinds of coaches, those that have been fired and those that are going to get fired. And there's a lot of truth to that.
Yeah, they are. Matt, jump in here on this thing because, and I like these comments that are coming in from people on the text line. Remember, you can send them in Facebook, YouTube, whatever, directly on the show. But if you text me, and a lot of people do, I'm going to try to get them in here to the ADs on this Thursday edition of Sidelines. But, you make it much more real the way you just described it, Matt.
Yeah, John's 100% spot on. And in my 3 years as an AD, I also was an AD during COVID time. We had 2 basketball searches and a football search. and I will tell you, it was interesting, John, at our level. You would not think this at Rhodes College. We had 9 people on our committee for the football hire because, we're trying to enroll 40 student athletes a year, right? It's not like we have a number of scholarships. So I have our admissions director on that call. I have our college CFO on that call because A, he was on one of our former teams that is in the Hall of Fame, but B, he has a stake in this too because from an NTR standpoint, net tuition revenue, football is our biggest cash cow. Even though we're non-scholarship, non-revenue generating. If you bring in 40 student athletes at $25,000 a year, that's a little bit of money, right? So over a 4-year cycle, we're bringing in $4 million worth of tuition to the college. So, and John probably had this too. I mean, like for those sports, I coached basketball a long time. I had a short list. Okay. I'm sure John had a short list too, but there's always, I can't tell you guys, and I know John's going through this. Those 2 sports, people find my cell numbers. I mean, I'm getting emails nonstops. I'm getting texts nonstops. Heck, on our women's basketball search, Trev Alberts reached out to me, who was the AD at UNO at the time, and we ended up hiring his women's basketball assistant, Rodney Rogan, who played in our league. But, I mean, you would be amazed as an AD, if you don't have a job search, people don't know your existence. But, man, you have a job search, they find you. So I can definitely relate to what John's going through.
Hey, I'll give you a perfect example here. So yesterday, and I know Rob's got a lot of listeners in the state of Alabama. Literally, I'm on the phone with a potential candidate, and I am not able to take any of these guys' calls because I'm on the phone with an actual candidate. I have Gus Malzahn, Hugh Freeze, Bill Clark call me back to back to back, not about about different people, but
That's
again,
right.
you're going to have not only candidates, but you're going to have, people endorsing candidates. And when I speak to groups all the time, hey, I'll start the rumor mill for you. I'm going to turn my coffee cup around. I say this in jest, but our friend, let me see if I can get it in there. There you go.
Here you go.
Balt Sports out of Birmingham, Russ Campbell, Patrick Strong, agents, and obviously I've dealt with it. No, I don't want folks out there speculating. Hey, John's going to hire one of their clients, but they do a thing every summer, kind of mock interviews for prospective head coaches, things like that. It's I tell people there's a fine line. Have maybe a hammer or 2 hammers, but I don't want 20 people calling me, just because you can get the star-studded lineup to get my cell number to call me or to ask to call. Use 1 or 2 hammers, but there's a point where you're like, well, if this guy's getting all of these people to call me, are they really that good? Their body of work should speak for themselves, and so that's kind of an interesting dynamic of the search process as well.
Rob, I want to say one quick thing.
Yeah.
I want to say one quick thing. What's interesting, I think football is really a unique beast because it used to be we had, for a long time, a recycled deal, right? Now there was a period where we want that young coordinator that has flashiness and new innovative offense whatsoever. I'll tell you what interests me when I was looking for a head football coach. I want the Dan Campbells of the world. What I mean by that, people in the locker room, and if you've listened to some of Dan Campbell's locker room that can lead men and just win the locker room, and he'll go out and find a couple good coordinator hires. I'm not worried about taking a chance on this innovative offensive nerd that comes in and can't run a locker room. I want someone that can be a leader of men, and I think that's what happens. I think people fail sometimes in their searches. You have to have people with organizational management skills that can motivate and inspire. If they can't, ultimately it's going to be harder on them to win that job. That's all I want to say.
Hey, you are spot on there, Matt. And you know, being a head football coach, especially at the FBS level these days, is like being a CEO. There are not enough hours in a day to manage 120 kids on your roster, to manage the PR aspects, to manage the political battles you have to deal with, donors, campus, all of those things. And so for me, one of the most important things, and more so in football than anything else, is what's your staff going to look like? You know, who, because you've got to have some really, really talented lieutenants, offensive and defensive coordinator, special teams coordinator, your ops person, you know, your strength and conditioning person who, you know, arguably is the most important one because they spend more time with the kids than anybody else.
Big hire.
Those four lieutenants or second line leaders there, extremely important. When you get down to, you know, some of the position coaches, still very important, but, you know, not as important from a culture and a leadership perspective. You've got to have some ground pounders there who are just dogs in terms, and I use that in a very positive way. They are dogs in recruiting. They will go they will go to all corners, not just of the continental US, but the world to go find players that can help you win.
Yeah, and I think about this, y'all, about owning the locker room. If you're a nerd, and I saw this out at the vet school at Auburn, they were talking about what they look for in candidates to be accepted to the vet school at Auburn, which is arguably the top vet school in America. It's the oldest in the South. He said, you know, you can have a 4.0, you might have a 3.0, but if you're a jerk, you're not going to have any patience. So there's a lot of things that you look at. You can't just look at the numbers, the matrix, okay? There's so much involved in it. And I think about both of y'all have had to make these kind of choices before. But, and I like the military references that you used because of your time at the Citadel. But, you know, everybody thinks in the Army or the Marine Corps, the generals run things. No, they really don't. And a lot of those guys are just, you know, jockeying for a position on a think tank or some kind of a board of some deal for when they get out. The NCOs, the cadre, the sergeant majors, the first sergeants, the second lieutenant, platoon leaders, they really run things. But John, you know this, it's the same thing in the business world. I read this book every day. I read parts of it called Leadership Lessons of the Navy SEALs. Got a ton of respect for them. It was written by these two brothers. One was a lieutenant commander on the SEAL teams for 22 years. The other one is a Fortune 500 CEO turnaround. He goes in and fixes things like the Wolf, you know, that guy on Wall Street, when they went in there, he goes, they had that body in the trunk and he goes, oh, hey, back off. You know, he goes, I'll fix this. You guys disappear. Well, you got to have those kind of guys. You've got the commanding officer, you got the XO, and you got the command master sergeant. When the group is deployed for 3 months or 6 months overseas and there's problems back home, somebody paying a light bill, making a rent payment or something like that, they get the money together. That command master sergeant knows what's going on among the men. And y'all both described it brilliantly about hiring a coach. But the guy that spends more time with them than anybody, there's two people, I think. I think it's the strength and conditioning coach and it's the chaplain in a place that they're going to spend a lot of time with. But John, you and Matt both are good people. And that's, you know, if you get an AD in there that's in it all about the money, doesn't give a damn about the people, the kids are going to pick up on that, aren't they? I think they will.
Yeah. I mean, and you know, that's a mistake that's made more often than you think it would be is, you know, student athletes are really perceptive. They know if something's rhetoric or something's the company line as opposed to something coming from the heart, they can cut through that really quickly. And I saw one of the things coming across the bottom there, people asking about characteristics that you're looking for. And I know this sounds cliche, but you've got to have somebody bringing some juice. You've got to have somebody who will get kids excited, motivated. The cliche about running through a wall for you.
Yes.
That's what you want. You want somebody that, is motivated, and that the leader has a clear vision of what's to be accomplished. And that is I won't say it's a rare art, but there's a lot of people who are brilliant football minds who don't have that ability to lead. And that's why, again, going back to the assembly of a staff, you've got to have a head coach who's a CEO, but you've got to surround yourself with people who can touch all of those things, whether it's player development, recruiting, X's and O's, in-game adjustments. All of those things are components of what make winning program. I mean, you look at Kirby Smart's team or Saban's teams as examples. Those are brilliant leaders, but they're surrounded by a really great cast too. I've got to give you this one quote. I had never heard this before, but you talk about management tools, things like that. Actually, our FCA director here at ULM, and he helps some other schools across North Louisiana too, sent me a thing the other day about doing the search. And, going back to Matt's point about a committee. Fortunately, my president bought in, and the best searches I've done have not been, they've been a committee of one, really. I mean, that's where I earn my money. That's what I get paid for. And so to have a president, which Dr. Berry is, who trusts me, says, hey, bring me one or two at the end. Obviously, I'm keeping him up to date. But the quote our FCA guy sent me the other day, he said, just remember this: the leader of the orchestra has to turn his back to the crowd all the time to be effective. And that's really true. You think about an orchestra and you think about the crowd out there, and he's got his back to him. And you've got to, you've got to shut out the noise. You've got to shut out the fan boards, all of those things, message boards. And hey, at the end of the day, can I look in the mirror? Have I been fair? Have I been honest? Have I communicated? Have I done what's best for ULM football going forward? And if you can answer that, you're going to take some arrows. Not everybody is going to approve of your choice.
Yeah. Look, hold on. We're going to take a quick commercial break and come back. John, the insight that we're getting on this is incredible because it's actually going on and both of y'all experience it. We're going to take a quick commercial break from some of our sponsors. Be right back. We got John Hartwell, AD, ULM, Matt Dean, Associate AD, the coach over at Rhodes College in Memphis, after this.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shopp's health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.
Man, great work on the banjo there with John Hartwell in the background there and Matt Dean. Just look, I'm telling you what, we're Audrey's in here going, when are we leaving for Atlanta? So got to go over there, getting that giant sucking sound that you can hear. It's Mallory wanting us to come over there and see the granddaughter, and birthday's coming up December 19th, but can't hunt this weekend. The split, and they shouldn't, by the way, start duck season until December 9th at the earliest and go till the end of February. The only person who can do that is the president of the United States. So I'm going to announce my candidacy for president in 2024 right now. It's going to be called the Extend the Duck Season platform. That's all I'm going to do. We're going to extend duck season so it'll be better. But the split, so we can't hunt this weekend. So go to Atlanta, and somehow I might find my way to the SEC championship game. But absolutely love and appreciate so much y'all taking time out of your day to join us. And I love the new videos and the graphics that Nigel put up there. I do love that band music. I didn't know y'all were that talented, but I knew you were smart, but you're talented. Let's talk about more of what you said. Proud Mary in Vicksburg, kids can tell a pretender from a contender. Both of y'all have got a lot of what they call street credibility, but when you walk in a room, John's 6'7", Matt's 6'3". Y'all command the room, but y'all know how to read a room really well. But you're both very smart. You're very tough. You expect things out of the people that work around you. Kids want that. They do not want to be coddled, do they? I don't think they do at all.
Go. I'll let you go, Matt, and then I'll take it.
Well, I'll give you a quick story about that. So the other phase of the football coaching search, which I really love this part, John, was I had 9 players on our football leadership council that I included in part of this process. There's certain things you can't tell the kids and, how things are going to shape out, but they met with all the candidates. We got their feedback. We wanted their feedback, right? So I remember this. It was we had a young rising star, we thought. The kids were bought in. They loved the guy, and he turned us down. Right. And so I go into the council and I say, okay, guys. And they were they were disappointed. Hey, it's May. Remember, this search happened right after COVID. So we were 1-9 and 0-4 in COVID. And we had a lot of our better players leave our program. So we're coming off a back-to-back 1-13 phase. These 9 young men knew that the next 2 years we weren't going to turn around. So some of my thoughts were, guys, look, if we can get this right, you guys will be responsible for bringing in the person that changed the pathway of our program and forever. When you come back from reunions, when we're having success, man, you guys are the ones that put us on the right path, right? So we're talking this. And the last thing I said to them, I said, guys, I have this candidate. He's not the shiny toy that we just had, but he's got 32 years in experience. He's been a head coach, been in the NCAA football playoffs last 9 years. He was a coordinator in our league. If I can get him up here in front of you guys, are you ready to give him a shot to listen to him? And fortunately, they said yes. We brought him up, and it was a home run. And 3 years later, we're 6-4. And if we're a stock right now in football, you want to buy us. And John, to your point, it's not just our head coach. He brought in 2 great coordinators, and it's a staff. It's a football staff that has turned it around for us.
Yeah, there's so many components that go into it, and and I know this is a simplistic term, but I told people the day of my introductory conference here at ULM, and again the other day in the press conference after making the football change, is that, hey, for us to be successful, everybody's got to be pulling on the same end of the rope. You can't have multiple agendas within the program, whether it's within your coaching staff, whether it's coach, athletic director, whether it's with some players in your organization. You've got to build a culture where everybody's all in, and it's so important. And so that's why, I'm not a big proponent. I know the backside of COVID taught us this, but Zoom interviews, right. I hate Zoom interviews as it relates to doing an interview for a job candidate. Maybe on the equivalent of a phone call, I can I can do that. But I've got to sit face to face with candidates. I've got to see that they'll look you in the eye. Body language, all of those things are really important to me in terms of, making sure that you get the right fit. Hey, and even if you go through all of those, and it's no different in corporate America than it is in college athletics, there are no absolute slam dunks in HR decisions. There is going to be, I hate to use slang, but there's going to be SH blank T that happens that the best candidate can absolutely go awry. Or even if you hire that person, something goes awry. That's just human nature. That's why I'm also not a fan. 10-year contracts to me, I don't care if you're Superman. 10-year contracts are crazy because so many things could change over that period of time. I know the industry norm is 5, and I can get behind that. But anybody that gives a 10-year contract, I think that's absolutely asinine in terms of too many things can change over that period of time.
Yes. Well, the only thing more asinine was the coach in waiting concept, which was stupid to begin with. You've got to make people hungry. Again, financial advisory practice in 32 years and counting, the first time that I ever see a family with a lot of money dump a lot of money in their 18 and 19-year-old kids' laps will be the first time. Because I wouldn't want to deal with people like that because they're going to go through that money as fast as possible. And you got to keep the kids incentivized, guys. Y'all know this, to get them out of bed in the morning. You got a 10-year contract with a guarantee, short of you being caught in bed with a corpse, they can't fire you for anything. You're taking away. Let's be honest. With the salaries that a lot of these coaches are making, and now NIL, how many of these players are hurting and feeling the pain of a loss as if they didn't have NIL? And there's not that many people with NIL. That's why I'm telling y'all the free market's going to work all this stuff out. I like Ollie in Gulf Shores. Can't beat Gulf Coast seafood and listening to sidelines. And John, you're from Mobile, and Matt, you've been down there. Honking, going through the Mobile tunnel. It's just a tradition. But if you learn how to not go into the Bankhead tunnel and you cross the Africa Town Bridge, you can bypass all that stuff. And then you just hope to God there's not a wreck on the I-10 bridge going across Mobile Bay because it can be days that you're out there. But thank you, Ollie, for listening to us.
If there is, you can just take that little exit off, veer off onto the old causeway, and go get you a little bite and a beverage at the Bluegill.
There you go. Look, you cannot beat it. And the fun doing the show down at Orange Beach back in September, we were down there for a week. God, that was fun, looking out over Ono Island. And Matt, if you've ever wondered, how did Ono Island get its name? Matt, I will defer to you as a lifelong, and will always be, no matter where you move to, a lifelong Mobilian.
I have no idea.
Tell him, Matt. John, tell him.
You're sliding Matt there because he's build it and they will come. He's an Iowa cornfield guy. So
yeah, absolutely. But no, do you know how John? You know how they got the name Ono Island, don't you?
I don't know that I do.
Well, I think there was a hurricane years ago, and it was so violent and so powerful it shifted some of the sand and the land around. So Florida and Alabama got in the feud. That's ours. Oh no, it's not. Oh no, yeah. That's how they got the name. And I think it is the highest value tax-wise property piece of land in the state of Alabama, even more so than Mountain Brook, possibly. But it is absolutely gorgeous down there. But doing the show sidelines down there, every day we're on the beach, you meet people and get to talking to them. And I've picked up a lot of listeners and viewers like, Casey Goodjohn, Abrian Clay, just listen to sidelines and they watch it. But this conversation is revealing. Wenzel's Oyster House. Oh my God. That's Will Johnson's. He's a Wenzel's guy. Okay. You got to love the Johnsons. But both of y'all, you think about the coaching searches now, but I want to ask y'all about the portal. I think the portal is peaking out. There was a comment on here from Martin in Geneva, Alabama. Technically, that's in the Wiregrass. I think it is peaking. And football coaches, both of y'all are coaches. You're ADs, but you're coaches. Would you want a guy that you're his third or fourth place to stop? Someone take that one on.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and I'll go back pre-NIL days. This is not 100% foolproof, but oftentimes when kids were transferring 10 years ago, the first question that was asked, are they running from something? Is there something? Are they transferring to get away from something? And that question still has to be asked in the portal, but especially when you get to third, fourth place, and some of these kids are looking for the stars to be aligned just right. And guess what? The game of life, the stars are not going to be aligned just right every day, all day in your life. I mean, overcoming adversity, dealing with adversity, that's all part of it. And I think from that perspective, we're not teaching a very good lesson as educators of our next generation of leaders, because quitting becomes habitual. You quit. Oh, gosh, I want to try this. Oh, I don't think I really like it. It's too hard. That becomes habitual. But the transfer portal is a reality, and those coaching staffs that I've been around that have the most success with the transfer portal, they are not going blind after kids just because of their talent level. Yeah. Oftentimes, they are going after kids that maybe are going to their second or third institution and they have experience with. They recruited them when they were high school kids. They know where they're from. They know the families. They know, their upbringing. And again, I think if you go blind into the portal and just recruiting kids off of their talent or off of the stats that they have behind their name, I think that's fraught with problems there. Relationships, and I've said that on here before. We're all in the relationship business, and the recruiting and the transfer portal is no different.
Yeah. And I like the Band on the Run in Wetumpka, Lake Martin. I think it's not too far from Kalijah. Boy, Hank Williams wrote a song about that, by the way. Hank Jr., but both of them did. Matt, thinking about that, and let me slip something in real quick before I go to you about one of our sponsors, ECS House Industries, Cherry Valley, Arkansas, located right between Wynn and Jonesboro. Chad House, great people over there, about 60 employees and a 99,000 square foot warehouse, making some of the best farm equipment, the better roller, the pulverizer, the better chopper, the aerators for the catfish farms that you see all over the South, the country, and around the world. Great people over there. And you got to love Chad House. At the end of the year, when he's writing out his bonus checks, he said, "This is my favorite day of the year. I get to reward my employees." That's the kind of boss that you want. And that's the kind of sponsors we love having. We're just blessed to have them. ECS House Industries. Check them out on our website and check your local House Industries dealer. Breaking ground. That's their motto, ECS House Industries. Matt, pick up on what John just said. Great words of wisdom. We've got about 7 minutes left. And thank, again, both of y'all for taking time out of your day to share with us, because it just means the world to us, our listeners, our viewers. I love the comments that we're getting. And there are several people, a white paneled van with no windows just stopped in Auburn to pick up another load of fans to take them to the nervous hospital, still seething after the Iron Bowl loss. How did we do it? But Matt, jump back in here. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest Part 2 is being filmed.
The thing that John said that's so accurate is coaches, we vet these kids out. We're not going to take anyone sight unseen, right? And that means, yes. I would say, John, you correct me if I'm wrong here, but 95% of the time, we've had an interaction with this student athlete and their family if we're going to take them. Now, as to the reason why some of this happens, I mean, guys, there's missed evaluations every year in every athletic department in the country. And there's also kids that want to play at the highest level, and they just find out that even though they're a 4-star, 5-star, they're behind 3 other 4 or 5 stars, and they want to get on the field. So not all of this is purely just money driven, even though the NIL quarterback pool of money seems to be very good right now from what I'm hearing. But, you look at the meat and potatoes of a roster, a lot of times it's just someone wanting to get a better opportunity to play. Maybe the coaching fit was not what they thought. I don't want to label them soft, but I do want to say that, the coaches, if I'm going to take someone, there's a huge vetting process, because I can't allow, if I have a successful program, I can't allow someone into my locker room that's going to cause problems. And if I don't do my due diligence, that's shame on me.
Absolutely agree. And how much time do you have? Like John, you say you got a committee of 1, and you've been around. I mean, you were at Georgia State when they started that football. You know Bill Curry, don't you?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He comes from pretty tough stock. When I was in Columbus as a reporter in 1989, back in November of 89, I remember our sports guys, Reese Davis and Roger Manus, went over and interviewed Bill's father. He lived in Opelika, part of the Auburn Opelika Metroplex there in Lee County, which is pushing about 140,000 people now. It's big. Back then, you know what that old man, he was in his mid or upper 60s at that time. He went in there and put 400 pounds on the rack and did 3 reps for Roger and Reese.
Wow.
Those are some tough people. People. Bill Curry's dad. And, I think about a friend of mine that played football at Auburn. We grew up in the neighborhood across the street from Coach Curry. And this guy's father was an All-American for Bobby Dodd at Georgia Tech and All-Pro for George Halas with the Bears. You were there in Atlanta when they started that program. You got a hell of a lot of experience at Troy. John Summerall.
Know him well. Talked to him multiple times this week. So
yeah, both of y'all. That's my point is, Matt, you've got a lot of your assistants are now coaching up at the highest levels. Both of y'all have. So, Matt, for people out there, and I'm going to throw this to you, they're fans of different schools, and I have fans. I know a lot of people in Memphis that never stepped foot on campus at the University of Memphis, but they want to support that place. So they want to support Rhodes. They want to support ULM. Maybe they're an LSU alum. Maybe they're a Texas grad. How can they help you? What's the best way they can help you? And put the word out. I'll type it up right now.
You talking about help me at Rhodes College?
Yeah, just both of y'all. It's your schools. I mean, both of y'all. And I mean, just because we need more people. I like this comment. We need more. Someone here, David in Selma, Alabama. I assume we need more people like y'all in college athletics. We do, because the narrative is positive when y'all are on.
Honestly, I think for us, if you're a local Memphian, and come over and watch our teams compete. We don't even charge admission. Come over. I got you free season tickets. We redid our court for my former boss. It's now Hilgeman Court. We have one of the neatest small college gyms in America. Our football product is better. A lot of people don't know. I mean, we offer field hockey. I was the first ever field hockey coach at Rhodes College. That's how desperate we were to hire a field hockey coach. So we offer 23 sports. We have 525 plus student athletes. We have more student athletes on academic honor roll than anyone in our league. And we won the Commissioner's Cup for the last 5 years, which goes to the best overall athletic program. And we feel like we're getting healthier in football and men's basketball, 2 areas that we needed to improve over the last 5 years, and we have. I used to coach women's basketball, had a run of 3 straight championships. Over the last 11 years, we've won 7 conference championships. I'm proud of that, even though I didn't coach 4 of them, because it's a continued legacy. So come over and watch us. And I think you will find one thing constant with all our teams. You will be amazed how hard our kids compete.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, People, if you want to talk about people that get disenfranchised with their university, one of the things I hear is I go to a game and I just didn't think we were playing at the level of intensity we needed to. Now, some people know that they're former athletes, some people don't. But, like, you'll never walk away from our environment and say we didn't play hard. And that's one of my things in life. I mean, effort level matters. Yeah,
absolutely. John, jump in on top of that. Great
that's
wisdom from Matt.
Great stuff there, Matt, for sure.
Love it.
And you know, I think we've been talking about football search, obviously, and that's the hot topic at our place right now. But basketball, we got in-state wins the last 2 nights, the men 2 nights ago at home over Northwestern State. And last night, our women's team goes to Ruston, beats Louisiana Tech 60-52 there for only the 3rd time ever in history. Coach Missy Bilderback, I've talked a little bit about her, had been the previous 8 years at Jones Community College. All she's done is step in here at ULM and go 6-1 in her first 7 games. Only lost is in Fayetteville and the opener by 5 to the Razorbacks when there was a 44-12 discrepancy in the number of free throws shot. Not that I would ever complain about officiating, but just to point out a fact.
Never.
Hey, here's the thing. A couple of more games here over the next 2 weeks, and she gets to take her ladies to Tuscaloosa here in about 2 weeks, and I'm expecting to give everything and more to the Crimson Tide in Tuscaloosa here in a couple of weeks. So, you know, a lot of great things going on. ULMWarhawks.com, John_Hartwell on Twitter. You can ask me anything and everything. I'm going to keep close to the vest who my candidates are. I'll throw out one who made the first cut, didn't make the second cut. Foghorn Leghorn, you know, wanted in on it, Rob, but you know, had some great credentials, but just didn't make the second cut.
Yeah, I see. Yes, sir. Back off, boy. You're bothering me. Foghorn will reappear somewhere out there. But look, you know what, fans? Fans, we always get back up. I mean, and you lose a game, you feel like it's the end of the world, and you just keep fighting. And that's why sports are so ingrained in our culture and our DNA. Is you get knocked down, you get back up. You just learn that as a young age. Parents, don't let your kids quit, because the first time you quit, it's tough. The second time, it's a little more difficult. I mean, it's a little easier. The third time, you don't think about it. And after a while, you're a serial quitter, like a lot of these guys in the portal. And that's the thing. Character does matter.
Yes.
Your honor's dearer than your life. That stuff matters. You learn, why is West Point? Why is the Citadel? Why do VMI? Why do they have these honor codes? You know why? Because you have to be able to trust people. It's hard to earn trust. It's even harder to regain it. Great show, man. Both of y'all, absolutely awesome. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. Go out and, John, you know this, and Matt, you know it. Your wife is a professional in mental health. She has a practice. Go out and think about when you see people that go through tough times, the impact you can make. We're all blessed. Go out and bless others. Have a great day. We got a great show in store for you tomorrow. We're gonna wrap it out. Got some big stuff on Rumble Boxing coming up tomorrow. Another one of our sponsors. Support our sponsors. Everybody have a great day. Appreciate you watching and listening. We are out of here. Thank you, gentlemen.